This is Anne Hathaway at 43, and this is Shakira at 49, and this is Jennifer Lopez at 56, and this is Salma Hayek at 59, and this is my dear beloved mother at 78. Most people think the secret to these women's youthful look is makeup, or it's expensive treatment like Botox or plastic surgery, or maybe it's just genetics. And yes, some of that is true, but what nobody tells you is that behind every one of those faces is a set of habits that are not cosmetic at all. Hi, I'm Noah Laith and I'm founder of the Longevity Clinic, and in this video, I'm going to reveal the 6 anti-aging secrets of women who don't age. Let's start with secret number 1. A few years ago, researchers at Harvard Medical School and Monash University tracked the sleep patterns of 61,000 adults for 7 years, and everyone expected the result to confirm the obvious. Sleep 7 to 9 hours and live longer. But that's not what they found. Some people in the study who slept fewer hours actually had better outcomes than people who had the perfect 7 to 9 hours a night, which raises an obvious question. If it's not about how much you sleep, what is it about? The people with the most consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up at the same time, had a 20% to 50% lower risk of dying early, regardless of how many hours they slept. This is because your body hates surprises. It relies on consistency to prepare for events before they happen. So when you stick to the same sleep schedule, your body gets ready an hour before bedtime. It slows your heart rate, lowers your body temperature, and release melatonin. But when your sleep schedule is unpredictable, your body gets an anticipation error. For example, normally your body releases cortisol to help you wake up every morning. But when you sleep late, your body releases that same hormone at the wrong moment. This confuses your metabolism and eventually causes systematic inflammation. Another example of this, insulin. Insulin is programmed to be most active during the day when you are eating, when you are moving, when there is light outside. But when your body is confused about what time it is, the pancreas produces insulin while you're sleeping. And this leads to poor blood sugar control, and eventually it may cause insulin resistance just from bad sleep. That's why you should go to bed at the same time every day. But consistency is only half of the story. Because it's not just when you go to bed relative to yesterday, it's also when you go to sleep. In 2021, a UK biobank study that tracked 90,000 adults for several years found that people who fell asleep between 10 and 11 p.m. had the lowest risk of heart disease of anyone in the study. Not the people who slept the most hours, nor the people with the most consistent schedule. Specifically the people falling asleep in that 1 hour window. 10 to 11. This is because your brain has its own overnight cleaning crew, the cleaners. It's called the glymphatic system, and it was first discovered by researchers at the University of Rochester back in 2013. It's most active during deep sleep, and it's when your brain physically flushes out metabolic waste, including the proteins linked to Alzheimer, and that happens only between these hours. It gets activated between these hours. So your brain is literally taking out the trash while you sleep. On top of that, deep sleep isn't spread evenly across the night. You get the deepest and most restorative sleep in the first few hours after you sleep. That early window is where the heaviest recovery happens, which is why someone who goes to bed at 2 a.m. can technically get 10 hours and still wake up tired. They got the quantity, but not the quality. They slept through the part of the night when the deepest sleep naturally occurs, and you can get that back by staying in bed later in the morning. So get to bed at a reasonable time, ideally between 10 and 11 p.m. Sleep is only half the story though, because there is a second thing happening in your body that's just as tied to how you age, and it's happening in a place most women never think to look. It's not your skin or even your hormones. It's your muscles. To understand why, we have to look at what happens as we age. When you're young, estrogen protects your heart by managing your cholesterol, your brain by keeping feel-good chemicals like serotonin and dopamine, and your bones by keeping your skeleton strong. But as you get older and hit menopause, that protection decreases. This happens because your body produces less estrogen, so your body needs something to pick up the slack. And that something is muscle. It's a buffer. Muscles keeps your metabolism running. It keeps fat from building up around your organs, and it holds your skin up from underneath so you don't sag. It even protects your brain from memory loss, which means losing muscle doesn't just make you weaker, it makes you age faster. That's exactly why building muscle becomes so important. In fact, a study done by one of my favorite doctors, Dr. Hans Kruger, split tested people who smoked with people who didn't smoke for 42 years. And they found out that people who smoked but were building their muscles had significantly lower chances of heart diseases and diabetes, which means that building your muscles is more important than not smoking for longevity and health span. Now, you will hear that and think, I should start doing Pilates or yoga, because celebrities like Kate Hudson say they build their toned bodies at 47 this way. But that's far from the truth. That level of leanness and muscle mass can only come from strength training. While yoga and Pilates are amazing for core stability and flexibility and muscle endurance, they don't do much for building significant muscle size. This is because of how your muscles grow. You see, most muscles are made up of two fibers. Type 2, or fast twitch fiber, and type 1, or slow twitch fiber. Fast twitch fibers are built for the quick, powerful movement like lifting heavy weights. These fibers have a high potential for growth and size. Slow twitch fibers, on the other hand, support endurance and sustained postures, like holding a warrior pose or doing repeated pulses on a Pilates reformer. And that's why they can't grow a lot in size. And what's more is that to make a muscle grow, you must continuously force it to work harder than it is used to. And this is called progressive overload. When you do strength training, if a 15-pound dumbbell becomes too light for your biceps, you simply pick up a 20-pound dumbbell. The micro tears created by adding more weight force the muscle to repair itself and come back larger and stronger. But when you do Pilates and yoga, once your body gets used to hold its own weight in a specific pose or movement, your muscle growth slows down. And you can make the movement more complex or hold it longer, which builds endurance. But you cannot add enough weight or resistance to force your muscle to get bigger. That's why you should do strength training 2 to 3 times every week. But that doesn't mean you do strength training every day and leave Pilates or yoga entirely. Because unlike the man body, your body energy levels fluctuate throughout the month due to your menstrual cycle. And that's why strength training is for your follicular and ovulation phases. These are phases when your energy levels are high, and Pilates and yoga are for your luteal and menstrual phases when your hormones are at their lowest. But even if your muscles are built, there's something entering your body every single day that can quietly undo a lot of the changes you just made. Which brings us to our third secret. Research shows that the average human in the US is exposed to 168 chemicals from cosmetic and personal hygiene products, not every year, not every month, every day. While most of these chemicals are classified as harmless by the FDA, they are actually very, very harmful. And some of them are endocrine disruptors, carcinogenic, and neurotoxins. On top of that, many of these chemicals have not been tested for safety before landing in your living room and in your bathroom. And what's worse is that your skincare and makeup aren't the only sources of these chemicals. Studies show that your body is now exposed to heavy metals like lead, mercury, and cadmium from the air you breathe, in traffic, the seafood you eat, and even the water coming out of your tap. And once they are in, they physically disrupt your hormones. To understand how this happens, let me first explain how hormones work. Think of hormones like keys and your cells like locks. Normally, a hormone finds its matching lock and turns it. This leads to a chemical reaction that produces proteins that are responsible for cool things like energy, like balancing your mood, and running your metabolism. But when a heavy metal is present in your body, into the receptors, this mechanism can be interrupted in 3 ways. First, the metal can act like a fake key. It can split into the lock and trick your cell into reacting like a real hormone has shown up. Second, the metal can jam the lock. They cram into the receptors and block it, so your real hormones can't get in. And third, the key does turn, but the wiring behind the door is cut. This happens because the metal can knock out minerals like zinc and magnesium that your cells need to finish the job. So the door opens, but nothing happens inside. That's why everything can look fine on paper on your blood work, but you can still feel exhausted and foggy. And that's also why Gwyneth Paltrow at 53 paid nearly $50,000 for a treatment that filters toxin directly out of her blood and said she felt amazing afterward. And to be honest, I also do it twice a year. Now, you don't have to spend that much money to remove toxins from your body. You can start small by doing 2 things. First, reduce your exposure to toxins. When you're going to Sephora to buy skincare or makeup next time, check the label of the product you're buying and see if it has any of these chemicals in it. And second, sweat out the toxins from your skin. Sweating is one of the few ways your body clears heavy metals. One of the best ways to do that is through a 20 to 40 minute sauna session. This is the habit Jennifer Aniston credits most calling her infrared sauna sessions a game changer for her energy and skin. But there is another organ that's just as vulnerable to this constant chemical assault, and it happens to be responsible for almost everything we've covered so far. Your mood, your sleep, your immunity, your hormone balance, and it's probably not what you'd guess. Long before microscope existed, one of the oldest healing traditions on Earth already believed something modern medicine is only now proving. For thousands of years, traditional Chinese medicine has taught that the true root of the body health isn't the heart or the brain, it's the gut. Yes, in traditional Chinese medicine, the gut is considered the root of all human health. That means if digestion is weak, nothing else works properly. Not your energy, not your mood, and your skin. But no one could explain why until recently. You see, your gut produces roughly 92% of your body's serotonin, the chemical most tied to your mood. And it holds about 400 times more melatonin than your pineal gland, the organ technically in charge of your sleep hormone. And your gut regulates also your immune system, which means your mood, your sleep, and how well you age are often decided in your gut. So secret number 4 is adding fermented foods like fermented vegetables, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and miso to your diet. It's one of the best ways to stay young. Now, we've got sleep, we've got muscles, we've got toxins, and we've got gut. But there is one more thing that most doctors won't tell you. A while back, I got my labs done. My testosterone came back at 572 nanogram per deciliter. My doctor told me I was within the normal range, but I still felt off and nobody could tell me why. I looked everywhere for months until one day I found out how normal ranges are actually calculated. You see, when a patient walks into a lab to get their labs done, their data gets added to a giant pool of data of everyone else, whoever walked into the lab. And these are hundreds of thousands of people over the years. And the lab then takes that data pool and looks at where most of the results cluster. And whatever falls in the middle 95% gets stamped as normal, which means normal was never actually a measure of health. It's just an average of people who walked into the clinic. And for women, this gets even worse. For decades, most medical research, especially around hormones, metabolism, and drug dosing, was done almost entirely on men. And before that, on male rats. Yes, no female rats. Women weren't even required to be included in most US clinical trials until March 1993. So a lot of what your doctor is comparing you against wasn't built with a woman's body in mind at all. And that's why the range you're being measured against may not reflect your biology or your hormones. And that's exactly why genetic treatment fails so many women. So whenever you're getting a wellness treatment, check if your clinic offers personalized care. And this is actually the reasons, or one of the reasons, why I built the longevity clinic with my wife the way we did it. At our clinic, we don't give a one-size-fits-all solution. It doesn't exist. We create always custom one-on-one plans. So if you're interested in losing menstrual belly fat or getting rid of brain fog, click the link in my bio. Now, let's move on to secret number 6. Do you ever wonder how Gwyneth Paltrow has that glowy, dewy, and plump look at 53 while you're still layering on the same $500 skincare and just not seeing any results? It's not genetics nor the products, and it's definitely not because you're doing something wrong. It's because of something coming from underneath the skin at the hormonal level. You see, estrogen is one of the biggest reasons skin looks plump and hydrated to begin with. It boosts collagen, balances oil, and locks in moisture so your skin stays plump and hydrated. But as you age, estrogen levels drop. And in fact, during perimenopause and menopause, skin can lose up to 30% of its collagen. While we men operate on a relatively simple binary hormonal system controlled primarily by testosterone, women, on the other hand, deal with a complex set of hormones, including estrogen, progesterone, T3, T4, and testosterone. And balancing their volume correctly is essential for optimal health. And that's why your skin starts looking different when you get older. But there's a way to fix that. This is where hormone restoration therapy comes in. It's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of letting those hormones disappear, you restore them to youthful levels. You bring them back to levels where your body actually functions extremely well. But not all hormone therapy is the same. When we talk about hormone restoration therapy, there are two different types. There's synthetic HRT and there's bioidentical HRT. Synthetic hormone therapy, which most doctors still prescribe, use hormones that aren't the same as what your body naturally makes. The most common example is Premarin, which stands for pregnant mare urines, because that's literally where it's made from. It's an estrogen compound that comes from the urine of pregnant horses. And this matters because in 2002, a huge study called the Women Health Initiative, where they spent $1.2 billion, came out and found that women taking synthetic hormones had a higher risk of breast cancer, heart disease, and stroke. And this happens because when synthetic hormones like Premarin are taken as pills, they go through the liver first. And going through the liver increases clotting risk and messes up with how your liver makes protein. And that's what led to high risk of heart attacks and strokes. But bioidentical hormones are molecule for molecule identical to what your own body used to produce. And that's why when these hormones enter your body, your cells already know what to do with them. Collagen production increases. Your skin starts holding moisture again, and a lot of other good stuff happens. But most clinics still hand out the same generic hormone restoration protocol to everyone regardless of her actual labs, her symptoms, her goals, or how she's responding once she starts, her receptors sensitivity. And that's exactly what, at the Longevity Clinic, we don't wait for a textbook definition of menopause to start helping you. We aim for how you actually feel, and we only use bioidentical hormones. If you want to see what that looks like, click in the link in my bio and make an appointment today for an assessment test.